Okay, so today we're going to look at 1.4, looking at literal equations and formulas. So, some more vocabulary. A formula is an equation that states a relationship between one quantity and one or more other quantities. Okay. And then a literal equation is when a formula is used to represent both variables and known constants. Okay, so example 1. Janet wants to calculate the time it takes to earn a certain amount of interest on a principal amount in an investment with simple interest. I equals P times R times T. What equation can she use? So first thing we want to decide is what is Janet solving for? Which variable? So she wants to calculate the time. Okay, so since we want to calculate time, that means we're solving for T. Okay, so if we want to get T by itself, with our equation I equals, I'm going to rewrite it just so it's a little bigger. To get T by itself, since everything's being multiplied together, the opposite of multiplication is divide. So we're going to divide by PR. And what we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other. So these are going to cancel, and we're left with T equals I divided by PR. And the one thing that you need to be careful about is if it starts as a capital letter, it needs to stay as a capital letter. If it's a lowercase, it needs to stay lowercase. When you're doing your homework or you're typing it in, if that is incorrect, it will be marked wrong. So keep that in mind. All right, looking at example 2, Rob is an electrical engineer who works with lots of wires. He needs to calculate the length of the wire L in meters using electrical resistance R of the wires in ohms, the resistivity P in ohm meters, and the area of the wire A in square centimeters. The electrical resistance formula is R equals P times L divided by A. What equation can he use to solve for the length of the wire? So again, we want to start off figuring out what is he solving for. And here he's solving for length that we know to be L. All right. So we want to get L by itself. I'm going to start with rewriting it. So if we want to get L by itself, we want to start off with getting rid of our denominator. So we're going to multiply by A on both sides. So now we have A times R equals PL. Then divide both sides by P, so that way we can get L by itself. So L equals A times R divided by P. Okay, example 3. In a half hour, Sarah is meeting her friends at the lake, 6 miles from her house. At what average speed must she ride her bike to get there on time? So we actually have a formula, and that is distance equals rate times time. So D equals RT. So we're going to use that to rewrite, so at what average speed, which would be our R. So if we solve for that first, to get R by itself, we would need to divide by T. What we do to one side of the equation, we do to the other. So R, or the rate, equals the distance divided by time. Now we can simply plug in what we know. Sarah's rate is going to equal the 6 miles divided by, and then our time is that half hour. So 0.5 hours. So if we take 6 divided by a half, we get 12 miles per hour. All right, and example 4. A worker at a framing store is making a rectangular frame. He knows that the perimeter of the frame is 144 inches and the length is 40 inches. How can he determine the width? Okay, so we know we're solving for the width. So when we think about perimeter, we're finding the distance around a figure. And for a frame, that would be our rectangle. Okay, we have a formula for a perimeter of a rectangle, which is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So if we want to solve for W, we want to start off with getting rid of this 2L. Since it's being added to the 2W, we want to subtract. So P minus 2L equals 2W. And then to get W by itself, we're going to divide by 2. So W equals P minus 2L divided by 2. And now we can plug in what we know. So we can say our width equals 144 minus 2 times our length, which was 40, and all of that divided by 2. So this becomes 144 minus 2 times 40 is 80 divided by 2. And 144 minus 80 is 64 divided by 2 is 32. And then our label would be inches.